That is a Thursday, that is a Thursday, is a Friday. The new Friday for the summer. So let's go ahead and start by calling roll. Keith is away this week on vacation visiting his daughter, who I think just had a little baby, so congratulations to Keith. And Gary Potts is here. Gary, you're going to continue as a member of the committee?
What I was asked is to see if I can continue to October. At least that's during the critical time. So what I'm going to do at the next Senate meeting is to request that my presence is extended until that time.
Great.
There will be a new person.
Okay, and Dave, are you going to continue?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Kent, are you going to stay on board? John, you're going to stay on board for the time being?
Yes.
Okay. And Hannah is here as our student trustee. And then Andrew Bott is the Vice President of Business Affairs now for the Associated Students. Andrew has got a class, unfortunately, this time, so he can't join us. So Hannah and Mary and I were just talking about the fact that maybe Soto will come, or excuse me, Alex Soto will come back and be Andrew for the summer months. Danny is here. I know Pinella has a class until 2, and she'll be here after that, so I want to talk about possibly adjusting the starting time to accommodate Pinella at least. Tom is not here, Tom Berg, or Tom is today. So I think we're all kind of present and accounted for. So let me call the meeting to order, and I'll entertain a motion on the minutes from the June 1st meeting.
Second.
John Woods.
Can I ask a question? Was that meeting recorded?
The meeting on June 1st?
No, not June 1st, sorry. The last.
Yeah, the June 21st meeting.
21st.
Last week's meeting.
Yeah.
It was.
It was.
It was videotaped and it's going to be on.
Yeah, it should be posted. In fact, they were working on that. Everything is up on the Brac website.
Okay, I didn't look. I just.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the June. Yeah, John and Kent. Did you make the second, Kent?
No, I did.
Oh, Gary did. Gary did the second. Any discussion on the minutes of the June 1st meeting? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
I wasn't here.
You're exactly that. So we've got 2 abstentions. Okay. So let's, Chair will entertain a motion on the meeting number 12, June 21st.
I'll move.
Dave Krause moves.
Gary second.
Gary second. Any discussion on the minutes from the June 21st meeting? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 2 abstentions. 3 abstentions. Okay. And again, just a reminder, all of our meetings are videotaped, and they are all up on the Brac website. It's current as of about Tuesday of this week, as I recall. Okay, let's move to public comment. Is there anybody, member of the public, who would care to say something at this point? Okay, seeing none, let's move to the budget update. I have 3 things to share with the committee today. And as it goes around here, this actually came out yesterday from Scott Lay, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Community College League of California. I think everybody's familiar with Scott. And the yellow highlights are what I highlighted here. So let's just, for now, let's just kind of go over those to begin with. The first one, the first part that I highlighted had to do with the importance of the governor's tax measure. and his particular opinion that he's not overly confident right now that the tax measure is going to pass. So he's indicating it's going to be a tough year and that we have to plan for either a 1% growth, and that growth is in the our funded FTES, which is now part of the budget. I believe it's about a $50 million line item that is part of the 2012-13 budget, and that we would get a little bit of growth if, in fact, the initiative passes, or we had to plan for the 7.3% decline, which would be in our funded enrollment, and that will be decided on November 6th. And so basically what that says is that we need to continue to work towards that $11.3 million planned reduction. And then again, as we mentioned at the last meeting, unfortunately, because of the deferment of the revenue that is going to come in from the state, with about as much as 35 or 40% of that being deferred to the last quarter of the 12-13 year, i.e. May, June, even if the initiative passes, from a cash flow point of view and a budget point of view, we're going to have to tighten our belts and deal with that $11 million reduction. So one way or the other, we're going to have to deal with that reduction, and we'll come back to that a little bit later in the meeting. Yes, sir.
This is not about the particulars about the money part, but with regard to the campaign to support the Brown tax initiative, what will PCC and any other community college district do for that, and what can faculty, administrators, managers, and classified do?
There is an effort that's being chaired by Roger Mulvar, not Roger Mulvar, Roger Marhine. Roger Mulvar is a friend of mine. Roger Marhine, and Roger's a friend of mine too. Yeah, he's a friend of mine too. But Roger Marhine and Simon with the associate students, and they're working side by side to create a PCC campaign that will not only be local here at PCC, but also would join up with the state initiatives and things. Hannah, is there anything more you want to say about that?
I'm actually leaving today to go to Portland for an advocacy training workshop, and it will help me with associate students run successful phone banks and canvassing. So we plan on taking that to the SSCCC and all the other organizations that we're, as associate students, are involved in. So we'll be doing that all summer and into fall semester.
You know, and with Simon Fraser and Roger Marhine at the helm, they're both pretty good advocates for what they believe in. So I expect that we'll see something come out of that. And I would hope that both Simon and Roger can have something back not only to this group but also the College Council, relatively soon, sometime this summer. Right?
And then I would anticipate then that probably October would be the big push month.
Good.
Or maybe even earlier, or
well, it's funny as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself that it's likely September, October, but October is probably going to be the month for all these initiatives. I mean, you'll see all kinds of stuff going on.
Fortunately, we'll be in session, so it gives us a chance to sit down with students.
Exactly.
All the time.
Yep. No, good point. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to point out is under the current year 11-12, this is sort of some cleanup stuff. The redevelopment, the RDA money, the redevelopment agency money, and that which is owed to the colleges, fortunately, through all the budget negotiations and what have you, the community colleges were made whole on the RDA money that they were going to lose. And now they are going to get that money, and the term he uses here is truing up. So the point is we are going to be getting that money in July. And I'm trying to remember what that was, Marie, how much that was?
It was about 2.4 million.
Right. So that'll come into us in July, and that's obviously very positive. And then under the 12-13 scenario, if the tax measure passes, the amount of money that we get, the $209 million, will be divided into two pots. One is $159 million, which will help with the deferral buy down, which will help pay us back, if you will, all the deferred money. And then there is that $50 million, which is sort of added at the last minute in negotiations in the last couple of weeks to provide some enrollment restoration or some growth to the community colleges. And as I recall, we get roughly 2% of that money, generally speaking. If that's usually what our portion is of this kind of money. So 2% of 50 million is what? 1% is
Million.
how much?
1 million.
Exactly. Just going to say it's 1 million. So that's about what we would get, $800,000 to $1 million, if in fact that comes true. So again, what I would do is I would encourage everybody you know to vote for the initiative. Going down to the next highlighted area under mandates, the budget adopts a compromise mandates block grant under which districts could choose to either receive $28 per FTS and opt out of claims going forward, or use the existing claims process. And this has to do with the block grant funding. So I need to talk with Dr. Bell and Dr. Rocha and the student services folks and some others, and begin to figure out which direction we want to go to. We just want to take the flat 28 per FDS and to support those things that are supported with these monies, or where do we want to go with that? So we'll be talking more about that going forward. And then under the bottom line, if the tax measure is in fact approved, we get $209 million, or the state does, the community college system does. We talked about how that's divided. If the measure passes, if the measure fails, then the budget is cut by that same amount of money. In addition to that, there's a total of $338 million in what's known as workload reduction cuts. So for us, that was about 7.3% of our funded FTES. So that would bring a total of $550 million. That would then trigger the so-called trigger cuts. I have not yet seen exactly when those triggers would hit. Last year, there were 2 triggers, and they both hit in December. And then we had that so-called February surprise 2 months later. That's kind of what that scenario is. And then the last bullet just basically speaks to the fact, what I talked about a few minutes ago, which is the monies that we get in 12-13 are going to be significantly deferred into the latter part of the fiscal year next year. And then he states in here someplace that we'll have in the next likely week, I would imagine late next week, the actual specific numbers by district. So at the next time we get together, we'll have specific numbers that we're working with that will give us a strong sense of where we're going. Any questions?
Yes. But the way we scheduled classes, the number of sections we scheduled for the summer, and what we're planning on doing for the fall, take into account the fact that we won't get this money, correct?
Right. The way the budget is planned right now, the way that the enrollment management plan is planned right now, is we're dropping down to about 4,777 sections. That is a 578 section reduction over what we've done this year.
How many? Down?
578. That, if we stick to that, and we've penciled this thing out so that based upon the FTS revenue that we're expecting, the funded FTS, in fact, we would end the year like 200 or 300 over FTE of unfunded FTS, which is good, 200 to 400.
With this not passing.
With this not passing. But even if it does pass, and this is what's really important, Danny, the way the money is going to come to us is in such a way that from a cash flow point of view, it would be difficult to fund those 578 sections, at least as of today, with anything that you see right now. But we'll keep talking about where the money is. That's the next handout. We're going to talk specifically about where the money is. It'll be very difficult to fund too many sections beyond the 4,777. the possible silver lining in all this is that if the state's economy improves, we'll get the deferred 11-12 money. I'm sorry, we'll get the deferred 12-13 money at the end of 12-13, so like May or June, which means that we'll start 13-14 with a much larger potential beginning balance, because they're paying us for 12-13 late in the 12-13. They're basically saying, you figure out how you're going to pay your bills until then. It's a receivable, it's on an accrual basis. Yeah, we owe you the money, but instead of being able to normally give you that money through the course of the 12-month period so you can manage yourself accordingly, we're going to defer a big chunk of that. So if we were able to manage through 11-12 with the money that we have, live within our means, but then we're going to get this, potentially get this bigger payment at the end of 12-13, then we've got that bigger, that chunk of money to start 13-14 with, which would be good.
Okay, so you're saying with the 4,707, with the cut of the 578, we're still going to meet all our funding even if this thing passes? It doesn't make sense to me, because if it doesn't pass, we'd have way less money.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. We are budgeting, the 4,777 is within our means. And let me explain that. If each one of those sections was valued at $5,500, okay, average cost $5,500, that's a savings of $3.2 million. That 3.2 becomes part of the $11.3 million problem that we've got. So it gets deducted from that. So we're basically saying, and we're using that number because that's all we're going to get funded for. Plus, we know we don't want to dig any deeper than that if we don't have to. So that's why we came up with that number. And of course, the concept is to put as many seats in chairs as we possibly, or seats in sections as we possibly can to maximize that FTES, that revenue. So LGI sections, et cetera. Try to get as many students served as possible within the budget that we have for the classes that we have to offer.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but if you've got these 4,777 sections, and that's what we're funded for if this thing doesn't pass, then if it does, we definitely get more money. I understand that the cash flow thing is a separate thing, but we're going to be funded for more sections. And if we don't offer those sections, or for more FTES, I don't want to go by section, but whatever,
Yeah.
if we don't offer enough, we're not going to reach our funding.
And absolutely, of course, we won't leave money on the table. You're absolutely right. We will not leave, if the situation changes and we get more FTES, we get growth, like we get that 1% growth.
Okay, there's the 1% growth, plus there's the, I mean, if you take the package the way it is, how many of these sections would we have funding for to put back in place?
Well, if we got 1% growth, and that's $1 million, okay, and if you divided $1 million by $5,500, whatever that number is, we could theoretically add back in spring and even summer, because again, we can defer some of our sections into the summer. You can push it off into the following year, into the summer of the following year. So, without overstating, I can guarantee you we're not going to leave any money on the table. If anything, our history has been over the last several years that we've gone way beyond the funded FTEs.
Okay, so in our portion of the $159 million.
That's all going to be used for deferral buy down.
Okay, but for whatever you want to call it, but it's money that's going to come to the college, and so at $159 million, if we are roughly 2% of that, that means about $3 million, and you're saying none of that's going to be used to
I'm not saying anything right now. I'm just saying that as the information becomes known to us, and as we continue to plan and do the things that we're going to do, the goal, of course, is to serve students. So because it's all a moving target right now, it's hard to commit one way or the other.
But I mean, if you're going to have a contingency, if we know if this passes, there's going to be $159 million, and we know it's roughly 2% that we get, that means it's roughly $3 million. So there should be some plan as to, for that $3 million, what are we going to use that for?
Well, and excuse me, you're right in the sense that, but it could be used for classes, a part of it for classes, a part of it for technology, a part of it for deferred maintenance, a part of it for you know, for raises, a part of it for, you know, for all kinds of things.
So is this committee going to decide how we're going to use that money, or how are we going to do that?
This committee will certainly be part of the process of deciding how the money's used. You know, exactly. It's a consultative body, and it makes recommendations. But certainly the Budget and Resource Allocation Committee is a very important part of this process. So there's no doubt about that. Okay, so that is that part of the discussion. Now, I'm going to hand out a fund schedule, a cash flow schedule, as of May 31st, 2012. And Marie and Anthony are here to help us with this, but what I thought would be helpful would be to have, as of May 31st, a sense of where the money is at the college. Now, the general fund, you can see on the left-hand column what it began as. So it started at roughly $19 million, $18,897,000. You can see the revenue in and the expenditures. You can see what the ending fund balance was at that point, what was encumbered, and what the cash in the county was as of May 31st, 2012. As Marie will tell you, that's a very, very moving, fluid target. The night that we did the board meeting presentation on June 20th, we had $114,000 in the bank, as I recall.
Yeah, 104,000.
$104,000 in the bank that night. So as of today, we had a negative $828,000 in Fund 1, but a positive $3 million in Fund 3, which is restricted money. And so the county considered us to have funds in the bank in order to do the business that we had to do for the college, because we had money in the bank. What, of course, impacts us is payroll, the 10th, the 25th for classified, and the 1st for certificated. We have a payroll coming up, obviously, on the 1st, which is 2-3 days from now. We are anticipating the need to do an interfund borrowing out of the 11-12, with permission from 11-12. The Board of Trustees gave us that, actually they gave us that permission months ago, actually a year ago, actually. But we also got permission to do interfund borrowing for 12-13 as we need it. Anyway, the long story short is right around the 2nd or 3rd of July, we anticipate the need to borrow about $5 million from what will likely be Fund 41 capital outlay and Fund 64 in some mixture there. And then we know by the end of June we're going to get an apportionment. We've been told by the Chancellor's Office we're going to get about $1.4 million in.
June or July?
June.
You're going to get about
1.4. But the reason why I'm kind of going through all these numbers is just to let everybody know that, as I said at the last meeting, it takes roughly $9 to $10 million every month to run the college, on average, 12 months a year. And other than the money we have in these funds, the 01 general fund, which is basically the $106 million we're expecting for next year, assuming things don't change, if you divide 10 into 106, you don't get to the 121 you need to be, 120 you need to be. So you can see how A, the interfund borrowing will be important, and B, how revenue enhancement is important, and all the rest of those kinds of things. Now, just to quickly go through the rest of this without going through it line by line, the general fund restricted, that's typically grant money, right, Marie, Anthony? It's federal monies that's restricted for some reason, and we can't use it for anything other than what it's restricted for.
Yes, that's Fund 3.
Fund 3. The temporary loan account, I think that's mostly, is that the computer thing that we've got?
Well, this was the result when we did the borrowing in 2009. There was some interest that was left. This is what was left on that fund when we borrowed 10 million
Right.
from the CCLC,
Right.
through the CCLC. So
Train.
we earned a little interest on that, and that's what it is.
Okay. Capital Services Fund, I know in the material that we have in our book, there's a complete description of all these things, but as you can see, that's, money's been moved. What was the Capital Services Fund, Marie?
Okay, the Capital Service Fund, this is the fund we use to pay the certificate of participation,
Right.
which we get the money from the parking revenue, and we still got 2012, 13, and 13, 14. It matures until 2014.
Right. And the Capital Services Fund, so the bond, that's part of the parking structure, building and financing and what have you,
It's a service
correct?
fund, yeah.
Exactly, service fund. Then we've got the Child Development Fund, which is that's a grant there, as I recall, right?
It's federal grant and state grant.
Right. And the Capital Outlay Fund, which is the balance about approximately $19 million, and that's, and again, the books are about to close in June, so we'll see what that is. And at the next handout, I'll show you something else here on that.
But, I mean, if you're already showing encumbrances, so you know what the encumbrances are.
Right.
Are there unknown encumbrances? Is that why we don't know the exact number?
Well, again, this was as of May 31st.
Okay.
So what
Okay.
you see here is a snapshot as of May 31st.
Okay. Okay.
Let me add to that.
Sure.
Ron. The encumbrance are obligations or commitments. There are some expenses that would still hit, like your hourly. Those are never encumbered.
Yeah.
Right.
Like adjuncts, they are never encumbered because we don't know exactly.
Yeah.
They're not like our fixed regular expenses. These are only the known ones.
Right. Right.
Okay, the building fund, that's the Measure P fund, so that's not touchable. Schedule maintenance, fingerprinting, the workers' comp self-insurance fund, property and liability, the dental. The dental, you might recall that in 11-12, in order to help us with our 11-12 budget, we deferred, I believe it was $1.3 million. That was the contribution we make every year. We were talking about a $10 million cut. Now when I talk about an $11.3 million cut, we have to make that $1.3 million in 12-13 because it wasn't part of the 11-12. We have to add it to our obligation.
But if we contribute 1.3 every year and there's 1.5 already sitting in there, do we have to contribute that whole amount? Can we just do half of it?
It's my understanding that from the actuarial point of view, we are obligated to do that from what our auditors tell us. Marie, is that correct?
Yeah, we have to fund it. See, whatever you see here, the 1.5, that's the ending balance. We're contributing cash to this, so it could use for the year. So again, for instance, after 3 years, you see extra money in there, you have the option not to contribute.
Right.
So
You got to maintain a certain balance, though, is what it boils down
Okay,
to.
so you're telling me that it's at a point where the
We have to refund.
actuaries have actually said you have to fund it at 1.3 million this year.
It's my understanding that we do need to fund it, and we can double check on the exact number.
Okay, I'd like to see that documentation. I'm not questioning you, I just would like to see
No, we'll
that.
we'll look into it.
Yeah.
Marie, if you can make a note, we'll find out what the actual is. I met with the SWAC people yesterday, so we can find that out. And then the self-insurance fund, and that's for the OPEB, which is the other post-employment benefit, the $1,440 that each employee gets once they hit 65 and they're retired. That's the one, basically, Fund 41 and Fund 64, each of those we could borrow up to a maximum of 75% per fund. And those are the two funds that we would borrow fund to do our inter-fund borrowing. And I don't have the presentation that I did last week, but one was whatever the numbers were. But the point is that's the money those are the funds we would go to do our inter-fund borrowing.
And who sets that limit of 75%? Not that I want us to borrow money
Legally,
75%.
it's legally established by statute, by code. Those I know that for a fact that those are the maximums.
But our GASB fund isn't even, it's not even in a,
It doesn't have to, see, and you didn't hear this last week, but,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. Fortunately, our board had the foresight not to lock this thing up in a trust account. And they for the purposes of the so-called rainy day / monsoon, they thought that they did not want to lock it up because if they locked it up in a trust account, we wouldn't be able to get to it. This way, we can tap up to 75% of it if we have to. And then the financial aid is the financial aid. So this is kind of where we are as of the 31st. Obviously, it'll soon be the end of this month, and we'll have another report. We told the board that at every board meeting, we will bring to them a cash flow report. We will bring to them a inter-fund borrowing report, not only money that we took, but money that we paid back. The board also only gave us a 6-month leash. They didn't give us a 1-year leash on inter-fund borrowing. And they understand that if we must, we must. Are they absolutely comfortable with it? No. I guess this morning on the radio, somebody was railing about the fact that, Stockton filed bankruptcy, and City of LA and all these other cities are right on the cusp of that, and we've got to go after those public employees and their benefits, and we can't afford them anymore, and yada, yada, yada. And then they were saying, and I've heard this many, many times, cash is king. You have to have as much money in the bank as you possibly can to get through the next few years, because of the fact that there just isn't any money, and now you've got municipalities like Stockton filing bankruptcy, and this person was stating, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that are just right about there. So, we don't want to get anywhere near that, and that's in our board's well aware of that.
Can I just ask one more thing? I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but on the general fund, our revenue was 104, we expended 95, so there's about 9 million left there. The beginning balance was 18, so that's why the ending balance is 27. The encumbrance is 11. You subtract that down, and that leaves about 16 million, not 8 million. Now, I'm just trying to understand, and I'm sure you can explain it, but why there's only 8 in the bank? Is that because that's money that's been deferred from the state, and so we don't have the cash in there? There should be about 16 in there or something like that, roughly.
As of May, the deferment from the state is about 20 million.
Right. In fact, go ahead, Marie, finish.
Yeah. As of May, Danny, 20 million is the money that we haven't gotten from the state, which we were entitled as of May 1.
In fact, that number, Danny, is might even be closer to 24 million, but because we're using what's known as a 90% confidence level, we were going with the 20. What I just handed out, and maybe Marie, you can walk us through this real quick if you'd like. This is the operating statement as of May 31 for the whole college, and I think this sort of gets, this will help with part of your question. And this is a summary of the operating statement. Obviously, it goes on for pages.
Okay, because I still don't understand, but let's go through this, and maybe if I understand then, I won't need to come back to the question. Okay.
Okay, so basically what this is our operating statement as of May 31st, 2012, by revenue categories and by expenditure categories. So Marie, you want to give us some highlights of this?
Okay, the revenue, the sources of our revenue is the federal. We got some money that comes into the federal for the general fund. We also have state money, which the bulk of this is coming in form of the general apportionment. And then we have the local revenue in form of taxes and enrollment fees. Those are the main sources of our revenue from the general fund. Now we come to the expenditure. We have the academic salaries, and we have the classified salaries and the benefit. And again, that's about 90% of all our expenditures. As of May 31, you can see that the total revenue is 104 million, and our total expenditure is 95 million. However, the expenditure does not consist of 2 pay cycles yet. The May 31 is only like as of April. So for the month of June, we will have 1 payroll, which we're doing right now, and then the last payroll will hit between July 1 to July 10.
And as I mentioned at the last meeting, part of the presentation to the board as we were going through our cash flow was that our beginning balance, ending balance for this year, which becomes the beginning balance of 12/13, in the 01 general fund was estimated to be about 1.5 million, as opposed to usually 3.5 to 4 million. And the reason for that is that because of that so-called February surprise, we had to use part of that ending balance to get us through this year, and as I said, it was about $2.5 million. So we're anticipating, at least as of a week or two ago, that we would land with about 1.5 million at the end of this year in our 01 general fund.
Do we know roughly what those 2 payrolls are going to be? I mean, ballpark figures?
I didn't bring my notes, but I'll
Yeah.
provide you with that.
Okay.
Okay, so you can get a better picture of that one.
And again, fortunately, the board gave us a permission to be able to borrow from these funds. And you know, we're very fortunate because we're a district that has money that we can borrow from ourselves and charge ourselves 0%. There are many districts out there that are borrowing on the open market and paying whatever they're paying in order to just keep themselves going. Okay, so where does that leave us right now? First of all, any questions about this?
I got them, but I can't articulate them right now, so keep
Okay.
going.
Okay. All right, so, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, where's the VP salaries in this? Is this in classified management?
Academic salaries, academic monthly, there'll be the certificated in there. Is that correct, Marie?
Yeah.
Certificate managers are being academic monthly, and classified managers would be in supervision management.
Right.
And so, Vice President Cable, myself, Dr. Bell, Dr. Rocha are in academic monthly,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where the VPs and the president are. Okay, so where does that leave us? I thought we'd be in a position to actually start talking today about where the 11.3 million is going to come from. Instead, because of the press of a whole lot of other business, plus the uncertainty of what was happening on the state level, my fellow colleagues, Dwayne and Dr. Bell and Dr. Rocha, decided that we would wait until we saw how things settled on the state level first before we actually came out and made some hard recommendations. The plan is for the 4 of us to do that and bring that to this group and say, okay, this is where we'd like you to begin to think about where the 11.3 might come from for next year. In broad categories, we are talking about unclassified hourly equipment, but frankly, there's not a whole lot of money left in equipment. Release time, overtime, for example, through May 31st of this year, we have spent a total of $675,000 in overtime. On top of that, we've accumulated some, if I'm reading this correctly, 16,000 hours of compensatory time. So we have there's a lot of real money going out the door for overtime, and there's a lot of money going out for comp time. So we need to do an analysis of this overtime and see where it's going, and that process has begun. And what that will mean, at least in one of these categories, is some hiring, because in one particular area, we're paying a huge amount of overtime, $270,000 worth, because we're dramatically understaffed. So that's one thing that we'll do. Is probably address that.
What area is that?
Campus police, because they run a 365-day, 24/7 operation.
Yeah, well, we don't need 20 cadets at every meeting, but anyway.
Well, they're not getting overtime, typically. But in any event. Okay, the other area is adjunct salaries. Vice President Cable and I were in a meeting yesterday looking at the possibility of lease financing some of our technology. Obviously, we've got the big investment into the AIS, Administrative Information System, that we're going to be making this year, and if there's a way to lease finance that, we can save a significant amount of money. And as I begin to learn more about the technology and the financing, I come to find out that a lot of colleges and universities go with the, and Vice President Cable can speak more to this than I can, but go to the model of leasing equipment over a useful life of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, and then they move it out, bring in the next. By that time, they're ready for the upgrade in the technology, both hardware and software, and it works out pretty well. So that's something that we're looking at, and we think we can save some money there. The consultants, the personal services agreements, the legal line, our Student Access and Success Initiative line, our Student Success Fund, the step and column. Does it make sense to defer some or all the step and column for a year to help us get through this difficult time? And that'd be from the top all the way down.
So including Dr. Rocha's
Including Dr.
$5,000
Rocha
increase?
all the way down.
Okay.
Dr. Rocha all the way down. And some other things. Yeah.
Isn't that a negotiable item?
What's that?
Step increases?
Yes. I mean, it's my understanding that we'd have to talk to the bargaining groups over that kind of decision. There's ways around that, but I think that we would probably want to talk to the groups about that.
Is that not something that this committee can actually stop?
Stop.
The step increases and so forth?
Oh, no. Well, this committee can't do anything other than advise anyway. So, no, that would have to be an action of the Board of Trustees in order, if that were to happen. And at the end of the day, without trying to scare anybody, if we don't get a handle on this thing, we're looking at furloughs, we're looking at other types of reductions and other types of benefits and what have you if we don't get a handle on this. So the point is that hopefully at the next meeting we're going to begin to bring back some concrete suggestions for this group to consider. You know, one of the things that we spent the last several months on is basically building the case. You know, basically building the foundation for why it is that we have to do what we have to do. And some of us understand that and believe that. Some of us don't understand it and don't believe it. And that's something we're just going to have to work through and get over. But the case statement is pretty clear in terms of what our cash flow is, and it's pretty clear in terms of what the money in the bank that we've got in the different funds is. It's pretty clear what the state situation is. It's pretty clear what the deferment is. And at some point, we're all going to have to just say, I guess it really is what it is. Plan for the 11.3, and if things get better, then we can build back. But and if we don't, as a college, make decisions, for example, like the deferment of the step and column to save. And I'm getting a number on that right now. We've got some people working on what that number is, but it's probably in the area of $500,000 to $800,000 a year. If we don't make some of those decisions, then we're going to be forced into tougher decisions down the road, much tougher decisions down the road. So don't quote me on the 500 to 800,000, but we were just talking ranges. But it's a bigger number than I thought it was, you know, from the discussion that I was in yesterday. So anyway, we're going to try to bring back some more specifics because we're beyond the case statement time. We need to really actually make some decisions now. We have to have a budget by September 15th, I think, up to the state by then. So we effectively have between now and the first board meeting in September.
That's actually the deadline, Bob.
Yeah, so
that's why we have to have it by around end of August.
Yeah, right. And then it's got to be approved by the board. So it'll be whatever that last meeting in August is, first meeting in September is. So we effectively have got, what, 6 weeks? 7 weeks?
Yeah, about 6 to 7.
6 to 7 weeks. So it's where the rubber meets the road time at this point. And a lot of this, you know, Dave, you're right, a lot of this has working condition implications and has to be negotiated.
Also, can we bring back also in the future how much expense accounts everybody has in the top exec?
How much, I don't know, you know, that's part of our contracts. So he wants to know what our monthly expense accounts are.
Yeah,
Never the expense
I know
accounts,
that's
they're
a personal
reimbursements.
item, but you know, it's just for information.
Take that under advisement, I think. Okay.
Dave, can you repeat that, please? Can you repeat that one, Dave? What did you need?
Their expense accounts
Oh,
These-
the expense account
Expense
of who?
accounts for all the vice
of
presidents.
the executive board.
The president and the vice presidents, and they're not expense accounts, they're just monthly revenue that we get to help pay for all of the lunches and the dinners and the traveling and the mileage and the other things that we do out in the community and what have you. It's just part of our contracts.
Right. Like I said, it's just for information.
Okay, that's really what I had for today. Is there anything? Is there anything else anybody wants to discuss further for today? Our next meeting is going to be the 12th in Creveling. Because Pinella's got a class until 2. They're right now scheduled from 1:30 to 3, but I think if we push it at least a half hour, that would be helpful for you.
Yes, please. Yeah, I'm sorry everybody for being so late. I had to teach those pesky students.
It's pesky students,
I know. Student success and all.
right? Exactly. So would it be okay with the group if we push the start time from 1:30 to 2 o'clock, and basically we kind of do a 2 to 3:30, I mean, kind of hour and a half average thing? Does that work? Ken's looking kind of.
I have a 3:30 staff meeting, but I'm sure that, you know, we seem to be able to end before the actual maximum amount of time. So
Yeah,
I think
you know,
that shouldn't be a problem for me.
I agree. I think we're going to get into the nitty gritty here pretty quick. You know, we're kind of past the reams of documentation and the PowerPoints and the pie charts and that kind of stuff. We need to sort of get to it, so. Okay, so 2 o'clock, the next meeting is on the 12th. At the moment, we're scheduled for the 12th, the 19th, I mean every week, 12th, 19th, 26th, August 2, August 9th, the 17th, 24th, 31st. So we're booked. And everybody's got Mary was kind enough to send everybody out the meeting schedule. So we'll just adjust it every day to 2 o'clock. Anything else for the pleasure of the group? I forget, do we need a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
You have a motion to adjourn? Gary?
Yes.
Dave? Second? All those in favor? All right, thank you all very much.